Hello, and what are we on? Episode number 5 of Storytime with Miss Parrot. Lucky you. Right, here we go. Chapter 54. The Mountains. The flat plains of farm country gradually rolled into hills and valleys. There were fewer crop fields and more forest. The hills grew taller, the valleys sank deeper, the farms disappeared entirely. Our friends had reached the mountains. Brightbill floated on the wind as Roz climbed the slopes. They passed craggy rock fountains and rushing waterfalls and meadows lush with flowers. The robot could have hiked on and on, never slowing or stopping. But our goose needed rest. As the stars came out each evening, they found a safe location to settle down. Frost was common in the higher regions, and Roz took the lighter from her belt and built small campfires to keep her son warm. They sat around the crackling flames, reminiscing about life on the island, until Brightbill drifted off to sleep. As the sun came up each morning, they'd clear away all traces of their campsite and set off again, deeper into the mountains. Eagles perched on jagged cliffs. Fish splashed through gurgling streams. Chipmunk bickered in the thick undergrowth. It felt good to be back in the wilderness, but this place wasn't home. So the travellers kept a brisk pace. The robot adjusted her camouflage to match her surroundings. In the forest, she wore leaves and tree bark. In the meadows, she wore grass and wildflowers. In the rocky terrain, she wore dirt and weeds. Even way out there in the wilderness, she wanted to go unseen. What Roz didn't realise was that she was already being watched. Chapter 55. The Attack. Wide mountain meadows made the robot nervous. Whilst hiking through them, she felt exposed and easy to spot. Camouflage helped, but it was hard not to notice a walking clump of wildflowers, especially one accompanied by a goose. And it was in one of those wide meadows that trouble caught up with our friends. From the corner of our eye, Roz sensed movement. She turned, but saw only tall grass billowing in the breeze. Then a twig snapped, but the sound was swallowed by the distant roll of thunder. It wasn't until the wind changed and a musky scent wafted by that the robot understood the danger. "I smell wolves," whispered Roz. Brightbill's eyes grew. Oh, that's the washing falling over. Sort that in a moment. Brightbill's eyes grew big and round, and he whispered back, What should we do?" Before Roz could reply, 2 wolves leaped out from the brush. They charged towards the robot, snarling and snapping their jaws. Roz heaved her son towards the sky so that he could fly to safety, and then she burst into a sprint. The robot zigged and zagged across the meadows, trying to shake off the wolves, but when she dashed through the patch of soft ground, she slipped and toppled into the grass. The wolves quickly surrounded their prey, heads low, ears drawn back, deep growling rumbling through their teeth. "Remember us, Roz," said the huge male with the scar. "Hello again, Shadow," said the robot, slowly getting to her feet. "And I believe your name is Barb." "You have a good memory," said the female wolf. "Actually, I have a perfect memory," said the robot. "And yet you've forgotten your rifle." A toothy smile appeared on Shadow's face. "You aren't so tough without your rifle now, are you?" Barb sniffed the breeze. "Where's your pet goose?" And then she saw Brightbill perched in a lone tree in the middle of the meadow. "He is not my pet," said Roz. "He is my son." Shadow chuckled. "We've heard stories about the robot mother and her son, the goose. They're just very touching." He turned and barked. "Join us, Brightbill. We'd love to meet you up close." "Stay where you are, son," hollered Roz. "I will take care of them." "You'll take care of us," growled Shadow. "No, Barb and I will take care of you." The robot's computer brain hummed as it tried to make a plan. The wolves were stalking towards her. Any second now they would attack. Roz had to do something, so she stalled. Shadow, Barb, is it just the 2 of you?" Roz scanned the meadow, and she saw no other wolves. Where is the rest of your pack?" Well, that was the wrong question to ask, because the fur on Shadow's back stood up and he snarled. "This is my pack now." Then the wolves pounced. But Roz wasn't there. With all the strength in her leg, the robot launched herself up and away, and now she was soaring through the air in a long, graceful arc. Once her feet stomped back to the ground, she launched herself up and away again. With giant arching strides, the robot bounded across the meadow in the direction of her son. At first, the wolves were baffled by the robot's strange escape, but they were expert hunters. They raced after her, studying her closely, watching where she landed. And when Roz made her final leap towards Brightbill's tree, a heavy paw knocked her off balance. She tumbled through the air and slammed against a trunk. Leaves shook loose, dead branches crashed down, but the robot held tight to the tree. "Are you okay, Ma?" said the goose as he fluttered to his mother's side. "Just some light scrapes," said the robot as she pulled herself up onto the sturdy branch. They are running and chasing her. I'm really bad at turning pages. Below the tree, the wolves were hollering with laughter. "Nice try, Roz," said Shadow, "but you can't outrun us. Wolves are built for chasing." You are wasting your time," said the robot. "You cannot eat me. You will never catch my son." "You still don't get it, Roz," growled the wolf. "I'm not hunting you for food. I'm hunting for revenge." Chapter 56. The Torch. Our friends were stuck in that tree. They sat in the upper branches, high above the walls, trying to calculate an escape. Brightbill could fly off whenever he liked, but Roz had to come down eventually, and when she did, the wolves would be ready. Shadow and Barb stretched out in the shade. They glanced around and licked their fur and sniffed the mountain air. The wolves looked comfortable, and yet there was tension between them. "I'm hungry," growled Barb. "I want to eat rabbits and deer, or maybe go back to farm country and prey on livestock. Anything is better than hunting a creature." Call this voice. "That can't be eaten." "You can eat all the rabbits you like," said Shadow, "after we kill the robot." Barb growled with frustration. She didn't understand Shadow's need for revenge, but now she stayed loyal to her mate. Day turned to night, and the wolves started yawning. Barb's eyelids became heavy. Shadow's body became weary. Then the soothing song of crickets lulled them both to sleep. The sight of sleeping wolves reminded Roz of those long winter nights in the island when the animals crawled into her warm home to sleep. She remembered the frightened look in their eyes as they saw fire for the first time, and this gave Roz an idea. Quietly, she broke off a dead branch from the tree trunk. Then she took the lighter from her tool belt and held a flame under the branch's knobbly end until it was blazing. And then she dropped down to the ground. Shadow and Barb snapped awake to find their world bathed in orange light. Towering above them, looking like a demon, was the robot. Her eyes were glowing. Her mouth was roaring. In her hand was a torch, flames rippling, embers whirling into the air. The wolves had never seen fire before. It was beautiful and yet terrible. Deep inside, they felt their wolves' instincts telling them this ball of swirling light was dangerous. Their instincts told them to run for their lives, and when Roz lunged towards them, they ran. Barb yelped, Shadow whimpered, and the two wolves raced away from the fire just as fast as they could. Chapter 57. The Stones. At first light, Roz nudged Brightbill awake, and the travellers continued north through the mountains. The goose stood on her mother's shoulders as she marched. His eyes darted around nervously, searching for any signs of the wolves. But the wolves were gone, and our friends turned their attention to a new problem. The weather out there was always changing. Roz and Brightbill had seen many calm, sunny days suddenly turn to wind or fog or sleet, or even snow. Our friends expected bad weather, so they hardly noticed when heavy rain came sweeping down a valley. But there was something odd about this rain. Brightbill squinted at the oncoming storm and said, "Ma, why is the rain bouncing off the ground?" Bouncing rain? That didn't seem right. The robot's computer brain went to work and she found the correct word. "That is not rain," she said. "That is hail." Clang! A hailstorm bounced off Roz's chest. Another one swooshed into the weeds, and then the sky opened up and hailstones were everywhere. They tore through leaves and branches. They ricocheted off rocks and roots. They flattened flowers and bushes. To the robot, the hailstones were annoying. To the goose, they were deadly. A stone hit Brightbill's shoulders and he fell to the ground. Roz scooped him up, hunching over, protecting him from the falling stones. But the hailstones might kill the poor bird if they couldn't find cover soon. Frantically, the robot scanned the area for any type of shelter, And there it was. On the far side of the valley, beside the winding river, was a cabin. It was old and shabby, but it had a roof, and that's what our friends needed the most. Roz held her son close, pumped her legs, and thundered across the valley. Heavy hailstones hissed to the grass and squelched into the mud and clanged off our robot. There was a soft thump, and Brightbill cried out in pain. Roz bounded across the rushing river in a single leap, landed without breaking stride, and kept running. Now she could hear hailstones cracking against the cabin, louder and louder. The robot stomped up to the front door, turned the handle, and stepped inside. Right, the next chapter. Yeah, the next chapter is called The Cabin, where they go inside. But I'm going to leave you with that on my cliffhanger. So, have a lovely weekend, and I will see you on Monday. Keep smiling.